All right, welcome back. Today, we're zooming in on one of the most powerful yet often overlooked parts of your body. It's this tiny gland tucked away in your neck, but it's basically the master controller for your body's energy. It's in charge of your metabolism, your mood, you name it. So let's get right into it and unpack the thyroid.
But first, let's try a little experiment. Go ahead and take a sip of water, or just swallow normally. See if you can feel something moving up and down right there in the front of your neck, just below your Adam's apple. That little structure that just took a ride, that's exactly what we're talking about today.
You guessed it, that's the thyroid gland. It has this incredible butterfly-like shape, and its hallmark feature is that it moves when you swallow. And this isn't just some neat little party trick. For a doctor, that movement is often the very first clue they use to figure out if something's going on with your thyroid.
So let's start there, with the physical gland itself, and take a look at what happens when its actual structure begins to change.
Probably the most common reason you'd ever notice your thyroid is if it gets bigger. And this enlargement has a specific name you've probably heard thrown around before, a goiter. So what exactly is a goiter?
Well, it's actually pretty simple. A goiter is just any enlargement of the thyroid gland. That's it. The word itself doesn't tell you why it's bigger, just that it is. Sometimes it's a smooth, all-over swelling, what we'd call diffuse, and other times it can be more lumpy and bumpy, with what are called multiple nodules.
And a goiter isn't just one disease. It's more like a signpost that can point to a bunch of different things. It could be caused by something as simple as not getting enough iodine in your diet, or it could be a totally normal response to life changes like puberty or pregnancy, when your body's metabolism is just working harder. It can also point to autoimmune issues like Hashimoto's disease, or be a result of fluctuating levels of TSH, that's the thyroid-stimulating hormone, which is basically the messenger from your brain telling the thyroid how hard to work.
So, how do doctors size up a goiter? Well, they use a really straightforward grading system. Grade 0 means you can't see it or feel it. Grade 1 is when a doctor can feel it, but you wouldn't be able to see it just by looking. And by grade 2, the swelling is actually visible in the neck. It's a very clear progression from undetectable to obvious.
But what if it isn't a general all-over swelling? What if it's just one specific lump or bump? That brings us to our next topic, thyroid nodules.
Now, the very first thing you need to know about this is that finding a lump in your thyroid is surprisingly common. Seriously, about 4 to 8% of all adults have a nodule that a doctor can actually feel. So finding one is absolutely not a reason to immediately panic. Of course, doctors do have to figure out if a nodule is benign, or if it's something more serious, so they look for certain red flags. Things like being at an age extreme, either very young or older, having a history of radiation to the neck area, or if the nodule just seems to be growing really fast. A nodule that feels hard or comes with swollen lymph nodes nearby are also important clues.
But, and this part is so important, even when some of those red flags pop up, the vast majority of thyroid nodules are totally benign. We're talking only about 5 to 15% turn out to be malignant, so keeping that perspective is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so we've covered the structure of the thyroid. Now let's switch gears and talk about its function. See, the thyroid produces hormones that basically set your body's thermostat. So, what happens when that thermostat gets cranked up and stuck on high? Well, that condition is called hyperthyroidism. You might also hear the term thyrotoxicosis. It's when your gland is just pumping out way too much thyroid hormone, and it sends your whole body into overdrive. Your internal engine starts revving way too fast, just burning through fuel like there's no tomorrow. And when you're in that state, the effects are really stark. You might feel like you're starving all the time, eating way more than usual, but you're still losing weight. On the inside, you might feel nervous, restless, and your emotions can be all over the place. It is the complete polar opposite of its counterpart, hypothyroidism. The physical signs are just as dramatic. Your heart is racing, even when you're just sitting still. You might feel palpitations, like your heart is skipping a beat. You're constantly feeling hot, sweating a lot, and you might notice this very subtle, fine tremor in your hands. It's like every system in your body is firing on all cylinders all at once.
And then there's one of the most classic telltale signs, especially with an autoimmune cause called Graves' disease. It's this wide-eyed staring look. It happens because the eyelids actually retract a little bit, showing more of the white of the eye. It's a really unforgettable clinical feature.
So if that's the body in overdrive, what happens when the thermostat gets turned way down? Let's flip the coin and talk about the other side, hypothyroidism.
Hypothyroidism is what you get when there's too little thyroid hormone. And what's really interesting here is that this state of slowdown is actually way more common than the overactive state. We're talking 5 to 10 times more common. With this, the body's engine isn't revving, it's sputtering and slowing down to a crawl.
The physical changes here are a perfect mirror image of hypothyroidism. So instead of warm, sweaty skin, you get cold, dry, maybe even thickened skin. Your face and eyelids might look puffy. Your hair can become coarse, brittle, and you might notice it falling out. The contrast couldn't be clearer. And the symptoms all reflect this total body slowdown. You feel this deep fatigue that sleep doesn't seem to fix. You're cold all the time when others are comfortable. You might even notice a slowness in your thinking, your speech, your actions. Even your digestive system slows down. It's like every part of you is running on low battery. And just like hyperthyroidism has its unique visual clues, so does hypo. And this one has a very memorable name, the Queen Anne sign. This refers to losing the outer third of your eyebrows. It's another one of those classic physical signs that can really help a doctor connect the dots.
So let's bring it all together. The thyroid really has this dual role, and it can cause problems in two main ways. First, its structure can change. That's where we get goiters and nodules. And second, its function can go haywire, either sending your metabolism into overdrive with hyperthyroidism or grinding it to a halt with hypothyroidism.
You know, we started this whole explainer with just a simple observation, a tiny little gland that moves when you swallow. And now we can see that this same little gland is responsible for regulating the energy of literally every single cell in your body. Its influence is just profound.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. The thyroid is a master regulator that operates on this incredibly delicate balance, where just a little too much or a little too little can change everything. So what does this tiny gland's constant search for equilibrium teach us about the importance of balance in our own overall health?